The lawyer's words hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. "I'm sorry, but you need to leave this property immediately. You're trespassing." Catherine Harrison, no, Catherine Fake Harrison, as she was about to discover, stood in the marble foyer of the mansion she lived in for 3 months, her perfectly manicured hand clutching a champagne glass, her designer dress suddenly feeling like a costume. "Excuse me, this is my house. My father left it to me and my sister." "No, ma'am, he didn't." The lawyer, Mr. Pemberton, adjusted his glasses and held up a document that would destroy 2 lives in the next 60 seconds. "Your father's will was very clear. This estate, along with all assets, properties, and the family business, were left entirely to his biological son, Marcus Harrison. Not to you, not to your sister." Catherine's face drained of color. "Biological son? What are you talking about? I'm his daughter." "You're his adopted daughter, as is your sister, Victoria." Mr. Pemberton's voice was professional but cold, a fact you apparently never knew, and a fact that changes everything. Behind Catherine, her sister Victoria appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her arms full of shopping bags. "Kathy, who's this? Why is he saying we need to leave?" Catherine turned to her sister, her voice strangled. He's saying we're adopted, that Marcus gets everything, that this house isn't ours." Victoria laughed, actually laughed. "That's insane. Marcus doesn't get anything. We made sure of that when we had him declared mentally incompetent and locked away in that facility." She stopped, because Mr. Pemberton was smiling now, not a kind smile, a predator's smile. "Oh, Miss Harrison, about that, Marcus was never incompetent. The judge who signed those papers, he was disbarred 2 weeks ago for accepting bribes. Every case he presided over is being reviewed, including yours. Marcus has been released, and he's coming to collect what's his." The champagne glass slipped from Catherine's hand and shattered on the marble floor, a sound like breaking bones. Because 3 months ago, Catherine and Victoria Harrison had done something unforgivable to their brother, and now Marcus was coming for revenge. They say you might just get lucky if you subscribe before the end of the story. Maybe it's luck, maybe it's karma recognizing those who stay to witness justice served cold. Hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear is the most brutal sibling betrayal and revenge you've ever witnessed. Richard Harrison died on a Tuesday in October, leaving behind an empire worth $300 million. Real estate, hotels, shopping centers, a business built over 40 years from absolutely nothing. And 3 children, Catherine, 32, Victoria, 29, and Marcus, 35. The funeral was everything Richard would have hated, ostentatious, expensive, full of people who never liked him but loved his money. Catherine and Victoria wore black Chanel, cried beautifully for the cameras, accepted condolences with grace. Marcus wore an off-the-rack suit from Men's Warehouse and stood at the back of the church watching his sisters perform. He had always been the odd one out, the quiet one, the one who didn't quite fit the Harrison image. Catherine was a socialite, married to a hedge fund manager, though everyone knew the marriage was for show. She spent her days at charity lunches and her nights at exclusive clubs. Victoria was worse, a trust fund brat who never worked a day in her life. She collected designer bags like trophies and changed boyfriends like shoes. And Marcus was the disappointment. He tried to work in the family business, but his sisters had made it impossible, undermined him at every turn, mocked him in meetings, convinced their father that Marcus wasn't sophisticated enough to handle the company. So Marcus had left, started his own small construction company, made an honest living doing renovations and repairs. His father had been disappointed wasn't strong enough. Ashamed was closer. You could have been running a $300 million empire. Instead, you're swinging a hammer like a common laborer. "At least I'm building something real," Marcus had replied. His father hadn't spoken to him for 2 years after that. And now he was dead, and Marcus felt nothing. No grief, no sadness, just a hollow acceptance that his father had never really loved him. After the funeral, the lawyer called them all together. "The will reading will be in 1 week," Mr. Pemberton said. "All 3 of you must attend." Catherine and Victoria exchanged glances, smug, confident glances. They'd been managing their father's affairs for the last 5 years as his health declined. They knew every asset, every account, every property, and they'd made absolutely certain that Marcus would get nothing. Or so they thought. The lawyer's office was cold, sterile, the kind of place where lives are divided into neat legal paragraphs. Catherine and Victoria sat together, perfectly coiffed, radiating confidence. Marcus sat alone on the other side, uncomfortable in his cheap suit. Mr. Pemberton cleared his throat. "Let me begin by reading the document Richard Harrison signed 3 weeks before his death. This supersedes all previous wills." Catherine's smile faltered slightly. 3 weeks before his death? She hadn't known about any new will. Mr. Pemberton began reading. "I, Richard Harrison, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this my last will and testament." Standard opening. Catherine relaxed. "To my daughters, Catherine and Victoria, I leave my love and my gratitude for the years of companionship they provided." Victoria smiled. "Here it comes, the division of the empire." "However," Mr. Pemberton continued, and that one word made the room temperature drop 10 degrees, "I recently discovered information that has fundamentally changed my understanding of my family structure." Catherine sat forward. "What information?" "Please let me finish." Mr. Pemberton's voice was firm. "Through DNA testing performed as part of a routine medical screening, I discovered that Catherine and Victoria are not my biological daughters. They were adopted through a private adoption when they were infants. This fact was hidden from me by my late wife, who feared I would not accept children who weren't biologically mine." The room exploded. "What?" Victoria was on her feet. "That's a lie." "I assure you it's not. Mr. Harrison had the results verified by 3 separate laboratories. The documents are here if you wish to review them." Catherine's face was white. No, this isn't possible. Mother would have told us." "Your mother died 20 years ago. She never had the chance, or perhaps she chose not to." Marcus sat frozen, watching his sister's perfect world collapse in real time. Mr. Pemberton continued reading. "Upon learning this information, I realized that my treatment of my biological son, Marcus, was deeply unfair. I allowed my adopted daughters to poison my relationship with him. I believed their lies. I sided with them when I should have seen the truth. They were using me for my wealth, while Marcus was trying to build his own life with dignity." Victoria made a choking sound. Catherine just stared. "Therefore, I leave the entirety of my estate, all properties, all business holdings, all financial accounts, and all personal possessions to my biological son, Marcus Harrison. He is to be sole executor and beneficiary. Catherine and Victoria will receive nothing." The silence was absolute. Then Catherine found her voice. "He can't do this. We'll contest it. "You can try," Mr. Pemberton said calmly, but Mr. Harrison was very thorough. He had multiple psychological evaluations to prove he was of sound mind. He documented his reasoning extensively, and, most importantly, he was legally entitled to leave his estate to whomever he chose. The fact that you're adopted means you have no automatic inheritance rights. "This is because of him." Victoria pointed at Marcus, her voice shaking with rage. "He poisoned Father against us." "I haven't spoken to Father in 2 years, Marcus said quietly. "How could I have poisoned him?" "You must have." "Or," Mr. Pemberton interrupted, "or your father simply came to understand what kind of people you really are." Catherine and Victoria left the lawyer's office in shock, but shock quickly transformed into rage, and rage transformed into conspiracy. They met at Catherine's penthouse that night, drank expensive wine, and plotted. "We can't let him take everything. That money's ours. We grew up with it. We earned it. How do we stop him? The will is clear. We make him give it to us. How?" Catherine smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "We make him declared mentally incompetent. If Marcus can't manage his own affairs, the estate goes to the next of kin, which would be us." "But he's not incompetent." "Doesn't matter. We just need to convince a judge. Father had dementia toward the end, remember? We can argue it's hereditary, early onset. We get a doctor to testify that Marcus is showing signs of cognitive decline. What doctor would lie like that? A doctor we pay enough. Trust me, Victoria, everyone has a price." It took them 3 weeks to set it up. They found a corrupt doctor who would testify that Marcus showed signs of cognitive decline. They found a judge, Judge Whitmore, who was drowning in gambling debts and would sign anything for $200,000 under the table. They built a case, fabricated evidence, created a narrative where Marcus was too unstable to manage the estate, and they had him committed to Brookside Psychiatric Facility for evaluation. Marcus never saw it coming. One day he was meeting with accountants about his inheritance. The next day, police showed up at his apartment with a court order. "Mr. Harrison, we have a psychiatric hold order. You need to come with us." "What? There's been a mistake."
No mistake, sir. Judge's orders. You're being placed under evaluation for your own safety. They dragged him out in handcuffs. His sisters watched from across the street, sipping lattes. How long will they hold him? Victoria asked. 60 days minimum. By then, we'll have control of the estate. And once we have control, Catherine smiled. Well, mental health evaluations can last a very long time, can't they?
Brookside Psychiatric Facility was not a hospital. It was a warehouse for people society wanted to forget. Marcus was put in a shared room with 3 other patients, given medication he didn't need, subjected to therapy sessions that were really just pro forma check-ins by overworked staff. "I'm not supposed to be here," he told every doctor, every nurse, every orderly who would listen. "That's what they all say, Mr. Harrison." He called Mr. Pemberton. The lawyer was horrified. "Marcus, I'm filing an emergency appeal. This is completely illegal. How long will it take?" "I don't know. The judge who signed the order he's known for being difficult to overturn. But I'll fight this, I promise." Days turned into weeks. Marcus watched his sisters on the news, attending charity galas, saw them moving into his father's mansion, watched them start liquidating assets. They were stealing his inheritance right in front of him, and he was powerless to stop it. Or so they thought. Because what Catherine and Victoria didn't know was that Marcus wasn't alone. Mr. Pemberton was working connections, filing motions, digging into Judge Whitmore's background. And what he found was explosive. Judge Whitmore had accepted bribes in 17 different cases. His bank records showed deposits that matched perfectly with case dates. He was corrupt to his core. Mr. Pemberton took the evidence to the state attorney general, and the hammer dropped. Judge Whitmore was arrested, disbarred. Every case he'd presided over in the last 5 years was flagged for review, including Marcus's competency hearing. The order was overturned within 24 hours. Marcus walked out of Brookside after 63 days, thinner, angrier, and ready for war. Marcus didn't go to the mansion immediately. He went to Mr. Pemberton's office. "What have they taken?" he asked. The lawyer spread out documents. "In the 2 months you were institutionalized, your sisters liquidated approximately $45 million in assets. They sold properties, emptied accounts, transferred stocks. They've been living like queens on your inheritance." "Can we get it back?" "Some of it. But Marcus, they've already spent millions. Cars, jewelry, trips. Victoria bought a yacht." Marcus's jaw clenched. "What are my options?" "Legally, sue them for theft, fraud, conspiracy. You'll win, but it'll take years and legal fees will be enormous." "And illegally?" Mr. Pemberton raised an eyebrow. "I'm a lawyer. I can't advise you to do anything illegal." "But if you weren't a lawyer?" "If I weren't a lawyer, I'd suggest you destroy them the same way they tried to destroy you, systematically, completely, and legally." Marcus leaned forward. "Tell me how." The first thing Marcus did was take back the mansion. His sisters had been living there for 2 months, treating it like their own, throwing parties, redecorating, erasing every trace of their father. Marcus simply showed up with the police and a court order. "This property belongs to me. You're trespassing. You have 2 hours to remove your personal belongings and vacate." Catherine tried to argue. "We've been living here for 2 months." "Illegally. Every day you've been here, you've been trespassing on my property. Now you have 1 hour and 58 minutes. They scrambled, threw clothes into suitcases, grabbed jewelry, tried to take furniture. "That's not yours," Marcus said calmly, blocking Victoria from taking a painting. "That's part of the estate. Put it back." "This was Mother's painting." "Mother's estate was folded into Father's estate, which is mine. Put it back." They left with almost nothing, just the clothes they'd bought with his money and the fury of the defeated. But Marcus was just getting started. Marcus hired a forensic accountant. "I want to know every penny they spent, every transaction, every purchase, every transfer." The accountant came back with a detailed report. $45 million spent in 2 months, an average of $750,000 per day. Catherine had bought a penthouse apartment, $12 million, 3 luxury cars, $800,000, designer clothes and jewelry, $2 million, extensive plastic surgery, $400,000, a consulting firm that did no actual work, $5 million in fake salary payments. Victoria had bought a yacht,
$8 million, a villa in the Hamptons, $15 million, a nightclub that was already failing, $3 million, designer everything, $1.5 million, a racehorse that immediately broke its leg, $500,000. The rest had been spent on parties, drugs, and keeping up appearances. Marcus filed lawsuits for every penny. Your Honor, his lawyer argued, these women institutionalized their brother under false pretenses specifically to steal his inheritance. Every purchase they made was with stolen money. We're requesting immediate asset seizure and criminal charges. The judge agreed. Within a week, everything was frozen. The penthouse, the cars, the yacht, the villa, all seized pending litigation. Catherine and Victoria went from living like queens to living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. But Marcus was still not done. I want them prosecuted, Marcus told the district attorney, for fraud, for conspiracy, for elder abuse, whatever you can make stick. The DA reviewed the evidence. Mr. Harrison, I'll be honest, this is a strong case. Your sisters conspired with a corrupt judge and a crooked doctor to have you illegally detained while they stole your inheritance. That's fraud, conspiracy, theft. We can file multiple charges. Do it. The arrest happened at 6 a.m. Federal agents showed up at Catherine's apartment, at Victoria's apartment, handcuffed them in their pajamas. Perp walked them to waiting vehicles while news cameras rolled. The headline that night, Harrison's sisters arrested for $45 million inheritance fraud. Their faces were everywhere. The socialite and the party girl now facing 20 years in prison. Their friends abandoned them. Their social circle evaporated. The charity boards they'd sat on removed them immediately. Everything they'd built their identities on, gone. The trial was a media circus. Cameras, reporters, public fascination with rich people destroying each other. Catherine and Victoria's lawyers tried everything, argued that they genuinely believed Marcus was incompetent, that they'd acted in the family's best interest. But the evidence was overwhelming. Recorded phone calls where they discussed handling Marcus, email chains where they coordinated with Judge Whitmore, financial records showing the bribe payments. The corrupt doctor testified against them in exchange for immunity, admitting they'd paid him to fabricate the diagnosis. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced them each to 12 years in federal prison. You betrayed your brother, the judge said. You used the legal system as a weapon. You stole millions, and you showed absolutely no remorse. 12 years, no parole eligibility for 8 years. Catherine collapsed sobbing. Victoria just stared, her face blank with shock. Marcus sat in the gallery, watching them led away in handcuffs. And he felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, no sense of justice. Just emptiness.
5 years later, Marcus stood in his father's study, now his study, looking at a photograph. It was from their childhood, Catherine, Victoria, and Marcus, maybe 8, 5, and 11 years old respectively, smiling, happy, before money and greed and betrayal had poisoned everything. He'd recovered most of the stolen money. The properties were his again. The business was thriving under his management. But he'd lost something too. His sisters were in prison. Catherine had become addicted to prison-issued medications. Victoria had been in and out of solitary for fighting. They'd written him letters, hundreds of them, begging for forgiveness, for help, for mercy. He'd never responded, because the truth was they'd killed something in him. The part that could forgive, the part that could trust, the part that believed family meant anything beyond DNA. Marcus had won. He had the money, the power, the properties, but he ate dinner alone, celebrated birthdays alone, spent holidays alone, because blood doesn't make you family, and neither does revenge. This story teaches us brutal lessons. Greed destroys everything it touches. Catherine and Victoria had comfortable lives, but comfort wasn't enough. They wanted it all, and in trying to take everything, they lost everything. Adoption doesn't diminish love, but some people use it as an excuse. Richard Harrison loved his adopted daughters for 30 years, but the moment he found out they weren't biologically his, he questioned everything. That says more about him than them. Revenge is a prison you build for yourself. Marcus got justice, but did justice make him happy? Did destroying his sisters heal him? Or did it just make him into the kind of person who could watch his sisters rot in prison without feeling anything? Families can be toxic, biological or not. This story isn't really about adoption. It's about people who valued money more than love. That happens in biological families just as often. The legal system can be weaponized. Catherine and Victoria used courts, doctors, and judges as weapons. They almost got away with it. How many other people are locked away because someone paid the right person? Winning isn't always winning. Marcus got his inheritance, but he lost his family. Even though they were terrible, they were still the only family he'd ever known. Now he has money and nothing else. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Should Marcus have forgiven them? Maybe, but they'd looked him in the eye while having him committed to a psychiatric facility. They'd stolen everything while he was locked up. Some wounds don't heal. The question: if you were Marcus, what would you have done? After being released, after discovering everything they'd stolen, would you have destroyed them completely, what he did, taken back the money but not pressed charges, tried to forgive and rebuild the relationship, or something else entirely? Comment your answer and be honest, because in the moment of betrayal, what would you really do? Subscribe now if you want more stories about greed, betrayal, and the consequences of crossing the wrong person. They say you might just get lucky if you subscribe before karma finds you. The Reckoning Stories, where every choice has consequences. Like this video if you believe justice was served. Share it with someone who needs to understand that blood isn't thicker than greed. New reckoning every week. Don't miss it. The end. Remember, the family you're born into is random. The family you choose is everything. Choose wisely.